Welcome to Life's a Coach. Our mission is to empower individuals like you to take charge of your life, discover your purpose, and elevate your performance to new heights. Each week, we'll be diving into engaging discussions, introducing you to valuable tools from the coaching world, and giving you different perspectives on individual development. Whether you're seeking clarity, motivation, or a fresh perspective, we've got you covered. Again, welcome to Life's a Coach, where the power to transform your life begins now.
Welcome back to Life's a Coach, guys. My name's Eric Clermont. Today we've got life coaches Sofia and Avril. How's it going, guys?
Oh, good.
Fantastic. So happy to have you guys here. Today we're going to be jumping into the topic of the power of traveling with yourself. Sophia recently went on a trip that she told us all about to Australia. Was it Australia or New Zealand? I think all of the above.
Australia.
She
Yeah,
was in
you're
Australia.
correct. It was Australia.
And what I think it was one of us who really picked up on a term that she used, which was I traveled with myself, not by myself. And that was super powerful because I feel that a lot of people really have a different vibe, a different feeling when they feel as if they need to travel by themselves. So, Sophia, why don't you start from the top? You know, why did you even go on this journey all by yourself, with yourself? And yeah, what was going on there?
Mm.
So, good question. Where did it start? It started with a program. So I went to do a coaching certification specific from my work. And it was quite interesting because I had other possibilities. So for our listeners, I'm based in Portugal. This course doesn't happen in Portugal, but I meant to attend a course that it was in English language, so I could go to London. But it was in September, so it would be like a difficult month for me to attend. And I'm not that passionate about London, and I've been in London in that year also. So when trying to find other possibilities, Sydney came into one of the options. And traveling from Portugal to Australia is quite a ride, so you don't go there for a week, as you can imagine. So it started like that. Eric, back to your question. This is what made me, okay, I'm going to attend this program. Why not do it in a country that I haven't visited before? And I really enjoy do like very big traveling plans, like going to the other side of the world in this case. The last time I did it with a group, an agency in Portugal that gathers 20 people and they go all together. But this time I thought, okay, I need to go to the program. I will not bring other people with me. So why not?
Really cool. So I have so many questions. I'm sure everyone else too. Like, has it always been like that with regards to how you travel? Like your mentality of,
Oh
you know,
no.
okay. So tell us. Like,
I think this grew. So um, I've been in a long-term relationship for 10 years in the past, and I used to do everything with my previous partner. And I think after that relationship ended, I started this self-development journey that we all talk about. And spending time with myself, it was one of the things that I really discovered that I enjoyed. So I travel a lot for work, and in small cities, I would do like a city tour for one day. And now I'm very comfortable with that. But in the past, it would be like, oh my God, am I really going to do this by myself? And even I work abroad during 1.5 years, and it was so hard being there by myself some of the days. We had a very small team. Sometimes we were together. So I think this grew up with my development also, this like, okay, let's go and I will manage it.
cool.
I want to get to that juicy part of
Of
the
course you want.
statement you made. So yeah, the statement you made about traveling with yourself and not by yourself. All
Mhm.
right. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because for me, it was such a as you all know, I used to travel a lot with work, right? And similar to you, even in my downtime, I'm a traveler. I enjoy that. You know, I would have weekends where I'm away with work, that I have to spend the weekend or the weeks or some holidays whilst I'm still, let's say I'm working in Chicago, I'm working in Kansas, whatever, then I have to spend time there as well, even on my downtime when I'm not working, and find things to do over the weekend by myself, right? But recently, when I heard you say how your experience was in Australia, and you said you put it in the way that you were with yourself and not by yourself, it kind of lit a light bulb in my mind. I was like, wow, I like the perspective she has on this, and I think for me, for future travels, when I do them by myself, I use that term loosely now because I want you to explain what it means to you before yeah.
Okay, but I would
Mm.
like also to hear you, Avril and Eric, on why was this like an insight for both of you when I said it. Before I explain what it came to my mind, let's just
Sure.
start blank. I said this and
Okay.
something
Yeah.
came to you and another thing came to Eric. So what ringed when I said this?
Yeah,
To
no,
me,
yeah,
funny enough, it was just a concept I've never had. And okay, so English is not my first language, of course. So it's a term I've used a lot. I travel by myself, right? But I never actually thought of what those words mean. All right. And when you said with yourself and not by yourself, it had me thinking like, wait, let me just get into more like, wait, there's to me it sounded the same, but it's different. So I had to then process and go, but what does with yourself mean and by yourself mean? Then I realized that even once I know the difference of what they are, it's also a different frame of mind that I can now use when I'm, traveling.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like changes the whole frame of mind. And even the way it happened for you, like it's also a conversation starter. Like when people I don't know, for me it just caught my attention, like, whoa, there's a difference. And oh, you know. But again, just the change of the frame for me is what I was like,
Wonderful.
ooh, this is actually a better way of doing it than the way I've been
Yeah.
saying it. And because sometimes in language we say things, but we don't know what we're actually communicating. That the way, if I use these words, I'm actually communicating this and painting this picture, you know. So I just loved it. It just sparked something in me. I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna start using that one now.
Wonderful.
I love it as
Eric.
well. I agree. Like, the words that you use are important. Um, But then when I dug a little bit deeper and really thought about what you were saying, I think there's a mindset behind that language, right? There's a mindset behind, I travel with myself rather than by myself. You know, there's a mentality usually when you're doing things by yourself, even when not going on a vacation, when you're going, to go out something to eat or even just going out, right?
Hmm.
To the store and stuff like that, there's almost this negative connotation of, oh, but I'm going to be lonely, I'm going to be by myself, right? When, you using that language of traveling with myself changes that perspective completely of you almost, you know, for want of another term, dating yourself, right? And being with yourself and you as a, almost as a separate physical and spiritual entity, right? Where you get to learn more about yourself, right?
Hmm.
And actually without the noise, you get to kind of be a little bit more curious about, okay, do I like this? Do I enjoy this? I can do what I want without the complication of having to think about somebody else's feelings or thoughts, right? There's obviously pros and cons with both, but I don't think that we're in that mindset enough of just complete freedom to do what we want to do. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think 100%. It's a very strong frame and a very interesting mindset. So yeah, do tell us kind of what you were thinking when, like, kind of where did this term even come about, and how did you differentiate between the two?
yeah. I loved what both of you said because both of you mentioned the mindset. And I think that the mindset is all that we can have to make it an experience, good or bad, for ourselves. And a lot of the people that I talk with, so my friends and family, they were all, oh, but you're going by yourself and all alone. And the both expressions are so heavy, all alone. Oh my God, this is like a disaster. And even by yourself, as you were saying, Eric, it's like, oh, so pity. When you're having a meal by yourself or you're all alone in a restaurant, things like that. This is if we hear other people talking about this, is like this is normally depressive, or something must be wrong with that person. And for a while I used to be that person that didn't like to see people eating alone, and I felt for them. When I started being that person and starting to understand the joy, I think one of you mentioned of, oh my God, this is so good, just spending time with myself and enjoying the vibe of a meal, because we get distracted even when we are having lunch or dinner with some other person, we get distracted by the experience. And what made me came to that word was these kinds of approaches. First with family and friends here in Portugal, but also, so my first week in Sydney was during the coaching program, and all my colleagues would, oh, but are you here by yourself? Or are you here alone? And you're going to do the traveling alone? And all this, and we were doing a strengths program certification. So it's talking a lot about your strengths, how they help you to be more successful and happy and everything. And most of my strengths are related with building relationships and being with other people. I'm very empathetic and everything, but I also redirect a lot of that to myself currently. So this is where it shifted. I'm not alone. I'm not by myself. I'm with myself, and I'm going to enjoy the experience with me.
Yeah.
And as you said, Eric, it keeps you more present in the moment. If you think you are being your best partner to enjoy this experience.
After you say that to us last week, I went, like I said, for me, English is not my first language, so it's the first time I'd heard someone put it that way. So I literally went and like, okay, I want to go look and see what's the difference, right, of by myself and with
Tell
myself,
us.
right? And so this is what I got, right? With myself implies interacting or reflecting internally, right? So it's like focusing on the self-reflection, self-care, and internal relationship, right? Like example, I spend the evening with myself, journaling, meditation. Or it's more like reflecting internally, right? Interacting internally. Then by myself means being alone without anyone else. So it's like focusing on physical solitude or doing something independently. So in that, I also got to see like, okay, if one is actually talking about the state in which physically you are by yourself, like individually, right? But with yourself means that you're within yourself, like you're also present to you. Like, so you guys talk about like going to a movie by yourself, or you go to a dinner, have a meal, you may be by yourself, but you're also with yourself if you're intentional about it, But for me, it was more like, okay, now that I get the difference, even in language, when I communicate, I think now I can communicate not better, but I just got another way of communicating to really get deeper to express what it is that I'm doing. So I like here they also talk about it's like part of self-care. So if I decide today I want to treat myself and just be with myself and go have a certain, like, I am by myself, but I'm also with myself, so at least being able to differentiate the two, that was huge for me.
Thank you for coming with the definition, Avril. I think it's important also for our listeners, because as you said, English is not your first language, it's not mine. And for some of our listeners, probably it will not be the first language also. So
So
maybe
Eric.
Someone who speaks English,
yes, Eric.
this probably is so like, yeah,
English
of course, there's a
it's not
difference.
actually my first language. French was my first language, but like, yeah, like obviously it's my the language that I've had most time with, for sure. So still very young.
Hmm.
But yes, I empathize with all of that a lot. I think, yeah, as you said, I think it's funny because yesterday, it's weird, and because I think it's important to realize. Obviously, we're talking about a travel experience, but you can use this in any type of
Oh, for
experience,
sure,
right?
for
That you're
sure, for
going through.
sure.
But
Mhm.
yesterday,
Hmm.
I was home alone, and I didn't have. Usually, I have practices in the evening, so I don't get my evenings usually to myself. I had a little salsa
Hmm.
class like coming up at like 8 o'clock, but I had like from 4 till 8 or something like that, kind of just
Hmm.
free by myself. So
Hmm.
initially, again, it doesn't always happen, but my body went into this kind of a little bit of shock of because usually when I'm at home and I have spare time, I'm with my son, but I don't have my son this week. So it was
Hmm.
kind of like there was that void, or at
Hmm.
least my body was trying to tell me there's this void of something's wrong, you're by yourself, you're not
Hmm.
doing something, right? And this is where, to Sophia's point, she has specifically prioritized being by herself for this experience that I feel as if a lot of us humans don't do. Like, we do all of the things to numb that experience of being by ourselves, whether that be through social media, or I'm going to max out my calendar with meetings until I'm just so tired, right? Where for me, like yesterday, I almost like kind of sat with myself. I was a little bit sad for a little bit, but then it's exactly what Avril said. I started to recognize, hey, this is actually a period to be with myself. So I actually started working on this male leadership kind of online, course that I've been working on, and where it asks you all types of questions about, what is your leadership style, and like kind of, who influenced your leadership. So then, like after that, as you said, Avril, you like experiencing something with yourself, learning something new by yourself, just being by yourself and like listening to music without the rest of the world. That's the one thing, is like being by yourself watching TV is not being with yourself,
Hmm.
right? Like being by yourself and scrolling social media is not being with yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's actually being in
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
presence with yourself, having that inner dialogue. And I
Hmm.
love that because that's exactly what came up with
Hmm.
what Avril said. So like, yes, I'm becoming better at that. That's one of the things why it stood out to me, is because it's definitely not natural to me. Like, I
Hmm.
still have those numbing and coping mechanisms. And as you said, right, it's like that balance between, again, being with yourself, but then being with other people. Now, I'd rather be with myself than just the sake of being around another human being. Do you know what I mean? It's really the type of interaction that's important for me.
Eric, I'm curious. So, considering you're coaching someone that would come to you with just the same statement. So I can't be by myself. I'm all alone. I just finished a relationship or something like that. I can't stand being at home. What would people think? Because this is one of the things that I think land more when you're
Mm,
starting on this process of being by yourself and trying to be with yourself is what do other people think if I'm traveling other
yes.
way to the world by
Mm,
myself? What do other people think if I'm in a country that I've never visited before and I'm having dinner by
yeah.
myself? Externally, this is what it looks like. I went to a theater, a musical by myself. So all these, what is the world thinking about it? So if someone comes to you, what would be your approach as a coach?
Yeah, unbelievable question. Unbelievable question. As you mentioned before, first of all, I want to just validate those people who are kind of going through that experience, right? Because as you mentioned in your past relationship, in my past relationship, I was very much the same, right? My mood and well-being was very much attached to that other person's mood and well-being. So, like, I only know that now that I'm out of the fire. So once you're still trying to get out that fire, um, it's very difficult, right? It's very difficult for you to just like all of a sudden, right? change that mindset. So as you said, it's a mindset shift. So I spoke in another podcast about um, comfort zone, discomfort, but like it's a very like, you know, thin line of discomfort, right? So just dip your toe in that discomfort, right? And like you don't need to go so far deep, you know. In I don't know, there's the weird show of Stranger Things and like going into like the unknown world or whatever. I can't remember what they call it, but it's kind of like just having a peek in, and then if you don't feel just like comfortable, just come back in, right? So I think first of all, it'd be a mindset shift, right? To realize, okay, when you're by yourself, quote unquote, really it's an opportunity to be with yourself. So now, this new time with yourself, you know, what do you want to do, right? What are all of those things that you want to grow in, want to learn, want to, what's that class that you've always wanted to take? Do you know what I mean? That's why, like, I'm taking salsa now. I've got time for personal development. Do you know what I mean? Like, you get time to travel to Sydney and like see, these beautiful sights. So I think first of all is reframing that this, of course, is a loss perhaps in a relationship, but it's also a gain in other ways, right? It's something that you can make, the best part of your life. So definitely that mindset shift initially to start with, and then, as you said, just going slowly, starting to go outside your comfort zone, and yeah, realize that there's this world internally that we don't even tap into that really just expands and multiplies, and it's endless, right? It's not like just like we think it's just like this, like our inner, soul is just like, it's like, it has a limit. It's limitless about how much you can grow and learn spiritually about yourself, right? So just be ready for that journey. But I'm interested to hear April's point of view about the coach if someone came to you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the whole element or aspect of coaching is that we as coaches, our role and our job at times is to help people find those mindset or belief systems that are hindering them from reaching the goals that they're setting for their lives, right? So it's about exposing those mindset and belief systems that are holding you back, right? So it goes back to that some of the things like what Sophia said, and it's true, society to a certain extent has, at least in previous generations, put this thing that if you're seen, let's say in a restaurant, by yourself, having a meal by yourself, it's sad. If you're seen at a movie theater by yourself watching the movie, it's sad. So it's a matter of like deconstructing that first. Like, hey, these are just belief systems, and it's just a way of people that a way of thinking that people have had. Because if you have a client who comes in front of you and is thinking of that or talking about that, which means that they are in a place where they want to explore that, or they're in a place where they're in a situation where they have to go and do that by themselves. But somehow the voice inside their head is telling them there's something wrong with that. And that voice inside of the head is coming from a belief system or that thought pattern that society and culture has had. So it's a matter of just like, number one, like what Eric is saying, is like first normalize it, right? Validate that it's fine and it's normal, etc. And also, or even just initially validate that it's okay to think like that, because that's the way we were all brought up, or the culture and society we've lived in. And then, challenge those mindsets, then challenge those belief systems for that particular person, and help them discover their own space in which they can then find it okay or not okay to do. But even just the thinking, like I said, for me, it was just like a light bulb that went in my that lit when Sophia said that. I was like, holy fudge, I never thought of it that way, So I think that's the same thing. Like we just challenging the client's mindset in regards to that. And at some point it's made of, again, reframing, like, okay, this is the frame that I had. And in my mind I was saying it's sad. And in my mind I was saying there's something wrong with it. But now I get to see you on that side, on the other side, and go, actually, no, I can also look at it differently and go, no, in that time, I'm not just by myself, I'm also with myself, and what does that mean for me too? So at that point, you may actually be giving them, you're adding to the client what they didn't have before, and when you add it, like, oh, actually, because to me, it was an addition. I was like, okay, I can actually be with myself in those moments, right? And I just want to go back to this definition. I mean, definition that I had here is that one of the two things that they mentioned is that by myself focuses on physical solitude, right? Or doing something independently. And with myself focuses on self reflection, self care, and internal relationship, right? So, to give even people some examples of what this really looks like or is like when I don't know, when you decide to like, okay, this evening I'm just gonna have a bubble bath and have some candles in and read my book, you know, that's time with yourself. You get what I'm saying?
Self-care.
It's almost similar thing. Or when you say, okay, today I'm gonna, whenever you're doing something for yourself, by yourself, right, and you're really present to it, that's time with yourself, you know. So that's kind of the way I'll
Yeah.
also, yeah.
And what would you say it's the other way around, Avril? Where is it by yourself, but not with yourself?
Oh, totally. Some of the examples that Eric mentioned, like if I, and even that, I'm also thinking about it though. But if I was to just like on my phone, I'm
Hmm.
alone and I'm on my phone and I'm just scrolling, right?
Hmm.
Or even there's certain times because even this other part I was about to say, like there's certain times where like, okay, I just wanna, I've had a long day and all I just wanna do is chill by the TV and just binge, right? That I'm not with myself. I'm just like, maybe what I'm doing in that moment may be something that I need for my body to just rest and something that'll help me just knock out, but I'm not with myself because um so some of those moments just scrolling on thing.
And I'm challenging you now, Avril, what you said, not you,
Mhm.
challenging
Mm.
what you said
Sure,
on
sure,
the
sure.
part of the reading a book, because I
Mm,
just listen. I really love reading and
mm,
I read all days.
mm,
Um, One of the podcasts that I recently heard, I think it was on the Know Thyself podcast,
mhm.
and the lady that was there, she mentioned how reading was an escape for her, an
Oh yeah.
escape from the real life. So
Yeah.
sometimes reading can also be a moment where you're not with yourself and
Yeah.
you're trying to escape something because you're not
Yeah.
spending time internally, but
Yes.
you're managing your life by reading something, even if it's self-development or another kind of book like a novel or something like that. I love the bubble bath. I think that bubble bath is definitely something with yourself. But here to
Mm,
our listeners,
mm,
maybe just being there and trying to understand, okay, what is this bubble bath bringing to me at this
mm.
moment?
Yeah.
I
It's just like
think,
it's self-care.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I'd like to like, you know, I think the way that we're framing this is obviously like trying to open people's eyes up to being with yourself, right? As we said, all of those very, giving kind of actions to yourself, right? That being said, there is a place of being by yourself, right? There is a place for that in the sense of we can't be in our minds all the time. It's actually not healthy for us to be so internally focused that we're constantly,
Hmm.
like self-talk and constantly thinking, oh, how do I feel about this? This would be too much for us. We'd just be like zombies by the end of the day, right? So I think those numbing moments are important to give ourselves a break, but we need to be very internally um, compassed, if I can, like like very in tune with that internal compass to realize when that numbing is, almost we're hiding from the true feelings that we're feeling, right? So
Yeah.
like just like you are in a relationship, right? Where perhaps I really need to talk about something, right? This is how I liken it to. This is the inner dialogue that's going on. Like I'm feeling something, my body's feeling something, right? I'm feeling very depressed or lonely, right? So I numb it, right, by going and watching a movie or something like that. Um, that's the same as in a relationship when one person wants to have a discussion about how they feel about something and somebody else like just saying that they're not ready or kind of stonewalling. Do you know what I mean? Um, that conversation becomes healthy if that person says, "Hey, I need a bit more time with this. Can I have 2 hours by myself to collect my thoughts so that we can talk about this like in a more healthy way, right?" And then you come back in 2 hours. The same thing by yourself, right? It's kind of like, okay, you can have that time for 2 hours to kind of, it's almost like that regulation of your nervous system to be in a place where you're comfortable again. But then at some point you're going to have to come back. Like that's the one person that you have to live with, right? Is
Hmm.
yourself. So I think understanding that you need to come back to that and being by yourself, right, is a tool as well. But as Sophia said, it's almost like more a numbing tool, more a kind of a wait and see tool, right? It won't solve anything because your problems, your issues are still going to be there. Um, and it just like something that obviously Sophia said before. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I know, and however much you'll share, but obviously, I think being in a relationship is an interesting one, right? So you, as in a 10-year relationship, like that process of being comfortable being with yourself, right? What was that process like? Can you like identify like any kind of stages or hallmarks where you felt, okay, right now I'm really like by myself? Because I think we always kind of go through that, and then you kind of go through this stage of slowly being much more comfortable with yourself. Um, just for like our listeners, because I'm sure, someone's going through that kind of experience right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always ups and downs, and it will depend on the length that you've been in a relationship and after a relationship. I think in the beginning I was like, yeah, now I have all this free time. I can do this all by myself. I am very happy meeting with friends, blah, blah, blah. And then but then it was COVID also in the middle of it. So it helped. And then I think that more is related to how much are you, and you said something, Eric, and thank you for making that point. It's not that we are saying that watching Netflix and being on your phone it's you shouldn't do it. No, you sometimes you do it, and it's okay, and it's
So
okay to
the balance.
read and just have this kind of moments. But one of the things that you said is that you're with yourself all the time. It's the process of enjoying the person you're with, like starting your work, or if you have already started and you're happy with it, having the self-love, loving yourself, the person you are and what you're bringing every day to your space. I think that's the moment where you you will prioritize these moments with yourself, balancing with all the other moments that you have with with your friends, being with your family, and even being just with people that you don't know. But I would say that it's maybe Avril can also share something around this, but I wouldn't say that it's the same process, or it has a step by step. It goes a little bit different for
Mhm.
everybody.
Yeah. From what I got, even just as you were still sharing, Eric, is that um, another word that, at least my understanding, what I'm getting from this conversation too, is that being with yourself is more like also being present, right? You're
Mhm.
present to yourself. right? You're more present. Let's say right now we're having a conversation, the three of us, and if I'm present to the conversation and I'm aware, I'm engaged, I'm here. I know exactly what Eric is saying. I know exactly what Sophia is saying. I'm engaged. I'm present in the conversation, right? But that's because there's three of us here. Whereas if I'm gonna be with myself, I'm actually present to really internally what's going on emotionally, what's going on mentally, even if I'm in this space. So whether I find myself in a restaurant and I'm by myself, right? But the difference between me being in that space, not just being by myself, but with myself as well, is like I'm present to, okay, right now I'm really enjoying people watching. Okay, right now I'm really enjoying this piece of whatever it is that I just got to try it out and it tastes good. Like I'm with myself present to why I'm doing something and why I'm doing and like what it's doing for like again, the definition that I got online kind of made me understand it more. Like it's part of reflecting and also self-care. Like I'm literally being present with myself, which is to me what I'm getting to is the difference between if if I was just by myself, I'm scrolling through the phone, which means my body is doing all this stuff, but my mind, is not with me, in that moment. But now if my mind is with me, I feel like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Like even initially when I was gonna give an example of the difference between by yourself and with yourself, and in my mind I had this thought of um using sitting down and watching some program on TV, right? On telly. Then I thought, but that's not, but I got to realize that, wait a minute, if I am intentionally saying, oh, I want to watch this documentary about dot 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 dot. All right. It's like I am present to it. Like this is what I want to watch. This is what it is. And I'm literally consuming information because I want to get that information. Like I'm with myself with the I'm even as I'm watching, I'm also processing what I'm hearing, or maybe listening to a podcast or whatever. It's like I'm more engaged.
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying? Those are some of the things like
definitely.
I'm also
Yeah.
getting from this conversation that, and like you
I
said,
like,
Eric, we're not bashing one over the other. For me, it was just to make sure distinguishing between the two, which was huge for me because, again, for some reason, in the English language, I hadn't picked up that way. I'm communicating two different things, and I'd never heard anyone say it that way. So that's why it was like, what?
and I like that you use the intention,
Hmm.
Avril, because I think that when you put intention in something,
Hmm.
you absorb it in a different way.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. So again, like as we start to wrap up, I'd love to um, circle back with you guys and almost. I think we've been spoke. You spoke about Sophia's trip, but I think the deeper underlying, you know, um, crux of what we're talking about here is again that power of being with yourself than by yourself. So being kind of experiencing things and doing things kind of when you're alone, right? When perceived alone, but like physically you're alone, right?
Hmm.
So what's one thing in 2025 that perhaps scares you a little bit that you're going to start doing with yourself or you will experience with yourself? It was like waiting for the question to land. It was like, I'm not ready to answer this
One
question.
hour to answer this
I know,
question.
right? I know. Well, like that's the beautiful thing is like, look, I'm not going to hold you to it, right? But it's almost that intuition, right? It's probably that thing that scares you and makes you think, "Holy moly, I don't want to do that." Um,
So for me, it's kind of interesting answering that question because one, as you all guys know, like till like September the year before 23, I traveled a lot, right? With work and whatever. So I was always by myself out there, right? And since I've moved to Georgia the past 6, 7 months, I've been mostly by myself, all right? So I think I say that to say that I am used to going in a restaurant and having meals by myself. I am used to like, you know what, today I'm gonna go watch a movie by myself, right? That I'm already used to. I have no stigma with or a certain mindset like it's bad, it's sad. Sometimes you choose to do that for yourself, you know, and sometimes you're in a place where, like I said, there are certain weekends I'll spend a weekend outside of home, but and I get to find some way to entertain myself. So I'll go to watch a movie by myself, right? So I'm in a situation where I have to do that. So I I'm saying all this to say that I'm actually on the other extreme or the other side of it. Like for me, having a meal by yourself, I know that whenever you do something by yourself, I don't find it sad or lonely or whatever you. I mean, I've had some lonely moments that don't get me wrong, but I don't have a stigma on it that it's sad and it's wrong and it's bad. What have you? However, what I feel like for me, I know how you asked the question, but I think I'm the flip of it. The challenge for me, or if not, the way I'm beginning to realize, like, wait, is to be more conscious about being with myself, right? So, for example, I'm saying, like, in the past 6 months, having moved to Georgia, I've been predominantly by myself a lot, right? But I then get to, and I get it, I've got these practices that I do every now and again where I'm intentional with my time, but I get to go, okay, I am alone physically most of the time. So I get to choose the moments and the times that I'm with myself. So that's something that I feel like, okay, this is something that I get like out of this time, this space that I'm in right now in life where I'm spending a lot of time myself. How much of that time can I intentionally now make time to be with myself? So that's for me the take
Love that.
home from it that I'm kind of excited about. Like,
Me
okay,
too.
how can I look at this time now and go, okay, incorporate the with myself time? Because
Love
sometimes,
that.
most of the times for now, it's a matter of like, it's not a matter of like I'm choosing to be by myself. I have to be by myself because of the circumstances I'm in right now, you know. So, uh, I guess another way of putting it is like during COVID when people were all in lockdown, right? We are all to a certain extent by ourselves in our own houses, right? But it's not a part of like, how do I choose to make some of that time be time with myself?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sophia?
Yes, I would probably not also not have a direct answer to your question, Eric, but while listening to Avril and thinking about our listeners, is also putting the trust that when you go out there with yourself, by yourself, but you're intentionally with yourself,
Hmm.
I have this feeling, because probably this is what happened with me, that your energy changes and you're
Yes.
welcoming other people to your life
Hmm.
because your energy shifts. You're so happy and so pleased with the company that you're with that
Hmm.
this will be felt around you.
Hmm.
So this is more on the being intentionate about it, as Avril was saying, putting it in your head that you're spending time with yourself.
I just want to touch a little on what you just said about energy. That's also really something to that. I don't know how we missed it through this conversation, but it's something that's dope, and I actually know exactly what you mean. Like again, if I'm going there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just spending time with myself. I'm in this headspace that I'm good, I'm whole, I'm complete, I'm enjoying life, right?
Mhm,
Any
mhm.
interactions that I have with people in that space is an addition, all right? Is a cherry on top. Whether
Yeah.
sometimes if you go out there and you got this, I'm by myself and I'm lonely, even the energy you give off, the interactions you then have with people, you can tell that there's a huge difference. So, yeah, energy. I like that. Anyway,
Good.
Love that,
yourself,
guys.
if you had to ask yourself the same question, Eric, as we wrap
Yeah,
up.
for sure. Like I'm definitely very much on the journey. The main ways that I spend with myself are
Mm,
personal development, just because that's always come naturally to me. So if I'm
mhm,
honest, I'm not outside my comfort zone, then I like it. I've always liked it.
mhm,
So really, I think what you guys are talking about, like I rarely, if ever, go and spend a meal by myself or with
mhm,
myself.
Mhm.
I rarely, like, even when I go to travel, I'll rarely go and experience something, like, because usually I travel for work and there's like experiences and stuff going on. I'm either just in the hotel room, just like watching TV, so more by myself, than planning. Hey, like from 9 till 12 we have games, and then I have the whole evening to myself. Really, I don't need to go out to dinner with everyone else, and do you know what I mean? Like, I can plan something if I wanted to, and be more intentional about that, because I really do like the idea of experiencing those experiences with myself. So I think I'm definitely going to be a little bit more intentional about that. But again, to end the podcast, we challenge you guys, if you're listening, to plan something, plan a vacation like Sofia did, or plan an experience where you're going to be spending time with yourself. Really enjoyed the conversation, Sofia and Avril, and we'll see you again on Life's a Coach. See you guys.
This was amazing. Thank you. Thank you both. See you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Life's a Coach, where our conversations aim to empower and support your personal growth. Until next time, remember that personal development is ongoing, so keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living a life that aligns with your true purpose. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of Life's a Coach.